Hello, everyone. This is Alicia Alt, founder of Level Up Score, and this is Tuesday's top tip live today for you guys. And I have a good one for you. It is the one thing that kept me under $1 million in my business. It's the one constraint that I'll teach you today, and I'm really excited to do that. So I went to the Alex Hermosi's workshop recently. Some of you know that. That happened in November. I paid 5 grand for the information I'm going to teach you today for free. So I just want you to know that. And then I will be traveling back to see Alex Hermosi's team in February. So very soon from now, I paid $35,000 for that meeting, and I will share with you what I learned. So keep following me on Tuesday's top tips. If you know any credit professionals, financial coaches, financial advisors, loan officers, real estate agents, anybody that might be working in the financial space, invite them to the Level Up Score platform so they can get these tips too. I appreciate you and I hope you have an amazing day. Happy Tuesday to everyone. So, I'm talking about the one constraint in your business. This was revolutionary for me as a business owner because I know that as a business owner, we have a lot of things that we need to do. And we're thinking about all the things that we need to fix. And sometimes we're spending time on the wrong things at the wrong times. They're the right things at some point in time, but it's the wrong time. So when I met in the workshop, one of the things that was very stressed to everyone in the workshop is if you are making under $1 million, you have one constraint that you need to be working on. And then they listed all the different constraints that you would have in a business that you need to fix and work on through to make a very healthy and a business that's an asset. But I'm not going to get into those. I'm going to just talk about the one constraint, excuse me, that most businesses that are probably listening to this may be dealing with. It's certainly something I was dealing with. And it's the one constraint that was affecting my ability to get to $1 million or more in my business. So I want to go over that with you today. Thank you for being here, by the way. So by the end of this call, I will talk to you about that one constraint, but I'm also going to show you how to fix that one constraint. So that's my promise to you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So what I learned from acquisition.com, how to fix your number one constraint and build a $1 million machine. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And so the purpose of today's call is to tell you exactly what I learned when I spent that time at Alex Ramos's workshop and how it shifted everything in my business in just one conversation discussing the most important constraints that a business has. And then after they listed all those constraints, they went line by line of what is important. And there was one constraint at the very top that if you don't solve for that one, you shouldn't solve for anything else, and you should do them in order. So we'll talk about that, and you'll receive a breakdown of core lessons that I learned to help with that one constraint, how to apply them, a mini scorecard so you know where you're at, action steps you can implement today. And my goal is that you walk away knowing the one thing you need to fix next. That is my goal for you. So the biggest lesson is that one constraint, and the one constraint for every business that is under $1 million is revenue. So every business does have one constraint at a time. The only thing you should be working on in your business is that one thing until it is solved. So for my audience, if you were under $1 million in business, this is the one constraint you have, and that is revenue. Most people expand too fast and they dilute their purpose. So if anybody's following me on a millionaire's journey, the thing that I teach people in that is levels. So we actually dive into what needs to be done at level 1 and level 2 and level 3. So we're essentially creating our business into a legacy, one step at a time. But oftentimes people jump into things, they have a passion for something, and they just start rolling with it, not thinking about all the things that are required to have a very successful business that becomes an asset for you. But most people, they do. We expand too fast and we dilute our power in that process. And so kind of bringing us back in, what is the one thing we should be doing, all of us in business, that's doing under $1 million? And that is the constraint of revenue. So what is revenue solved? Revenue solved is a business doing $1 million a year. And until that is solved, that's the only restraint worth solving for. So here's a scorecard for your business that you can look at. This is if you are following me and you say, hey, yes, my business is under $1 million. I want it to be $1 million. I want you to take this scorecard. I want you to score yourself 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. You're doing great in this area. one being, hey, I really, really suck in this area, and then any number in between kind of guiding you on where you're at and where you need to put your attention to. So, again, this scorecard is in relationship to the number one constraint, if that is for you, of revenue. So those are, again, speaking to people who have revenue under $1 million a year, not $1 million in 2 years, not $1 million in 3 years. For some of you who got the millionaire award, it is for those who have made $1 million in 1 year or under $1 million in 1 year. Okay. So write these down. We got the word offer. That should be one word to write down. The offer is knowing, do you have a niche for your business? Is it clear? Does it solve a burning problem? So what I mean by that is your offer should be very clear and it should be niche down so that you know exactly who your audience is. If you don't have that, you need to start there first. That's really important. But it also needs to solve a burning pain. And so if you create a niche, let's say I'm going to work with first-time home buyers to get them mortgage ready in 3 months. Let's just say that's your niche. That's clear. That's niched. That's very good. But then when I say solves a burning problem, yes, that solves a burning problem. There's a lot of first-time home buyers out there that are looking to get qualified here in this spring coming up. And so they're looking for ways to do that. But I want you to go a little bit deeper. And I want you to look at your process, your offer, your journey that you're going to be giving these clients and make sure that you do deliver on that promise, right? So when I talk about offer, I'm talking about the entire process, like the journey and everything. Is it clear? Is it going to help them get to their goal? Does it relieve that burning pain that they have? If it doesn't, go back to the drawing board and make sure that it does. You always want to deliver on your promise. When you have a good offer, this will sustain you for life. This is something that I had even when I didn't have anything else. Okay, was I had a good offer. Everyone knew Alicia would get you to buy your first home. Go through Alicia, and if you need anything home related, she was going to solve that problem for you. And so if you have that in your back pocket and people know you for that, you won't have to worry about business. Okay. So rate yourself on offer 1 to 5. Again, 1 being I suck at this, to 10 being I'm really good at this. If you're below a 10, you should be going back to this offer and making it a 10, right? So you're going to study, how do you put offers together? How do I put the journey together? How do I niche down? How do I make this clear? That's what you should be studying. Okay. Next, we have lead flow. Are you getting enough attention? Do you know how to get leads? Alex Hormozy said that if you could figure out how to get leads, you will never have to worry about money because you can work in any industry doing anything and you'll be able to get leads. And there's a ratio, you get so many leads and you're going to get conversions, right? Whether or not your offer is really good or not, leads will always prove to do good for you, the more leads you have. So if you feel like, hey, you know what, I'm having a problem getting leads, then that's an area you need to study. And quite frankly, all of us, no matter where you're at, it's always good to study leads. Like I said before, Alex Morosi said, if you're a pro at getting leads, you can do anything. So this is something that I've been spending a lot of time studying on my side time. But leads, I rated pretty high. So for me, offer 10. I was getting people to their goal no matter what. Lead flow, I had a great flow of leads probably because my offer was so good. And that tends to happen when you have a really good offer. So I would rate myself probably a 10 on lead flow as well. Conversion is the part that I was having a problem with in one particular business and the one that I went to the workshop for. And I thought I was doing really well because my numbers were good, but my closing rate was not actually good, even though I thought it was because, again, when you have a lot of leads come in, and you're converting some of them, your numbers could be big, even though your conversion rate is actually not good. So I learned that I was not converting at a high rate. And so that's what I've been studying. And I'm going to teach you some ways that I studied that and how I was taught by Alex Hormozy's team to learn how to convert in my industry that I went to him for help with. And hopefully that'll help you as well. Delivery, are the results consistent and impressive? This one I had a 10 on it too. And then retention LTV, are people staying and buying? For the business that I went to, Alex Hormozy's team, I did not rate myself a 10 here because I was having sometimes people buying one time and never buying again. So I had to solve for that, and we've successfully solved for that too. So once you know where your gap is in producing revenue for your business by using the scorecard, you can go back and you can train even chat GPT, but you can learn in all different ways of how you can fix these problems. And sometimes they'll come as an, oh, why didn't I do that kind of moment, but it's because you weren't thinking about it and scoring yourself in these areas, right? Sometimes when one thing is going really good, we forget that there's other things that aren't going well, right? Like I said, my offer is really good. My lead flow is really good. My delivery was good. These two weren't doing so well, right? And so I need to study that, but I didn't see that, right? Because I wasn't rating myself on all of these measures. And that's what I'm recommending that you do. Okay. So that's a scorecard. So write that down: offer, lead flow, conversion, delivery, retention, and rate yourself. And then go do some homework in those areas that you did not rate yourself at least a 10 in. And then everyone, I do recommend daily or weekly spending some time on lead flow. Okay. All right, sales, the skill you must master. And so, when we're talking about revenue being the number one constraint, what's the best way to get revenue is having a great salesperson, right? But oftentimes, and I did this before I went to Alex Hormozy's workshop, is I was solving the wrong constraint problem. I thought I had a key person constraint problem, which I do. And so, if you're not sure what that means, it means that my business really relies on me. It relies on my face, it relies on my social media posts, it relies on me as in every area. And so, I started to hire people to take on some of those roles for me. And Alex has his own story of him doing that as well. And he actually got shut down on social media accounts because he did it the wrong way. But we all kind of like, we want to get rid of certain things because we think, hey, it's going to make it better. I don't want to be the key man person, which you eventually shouldn't be. But in the beginning, you should be. And so what I found is my business was actually doing worse when I started letting other people take control of certain things because I had not personally perfected it. It wasn't that the people weren't good that I hired in to do the roles. It's that I hadn't perfected it and I was expecting them to do what I was doing that wasn't perfected, right? So I said, okay, here's our sales script, or I'm having them help me figure out what the sales script is and I'm paying them for that. But that's not the right approach to do. So the first thing that I would recommend if you are under $1 million is you must be the first great salesperson. Take on all the lead jobs that are going to help you with revenue. Don't outsource those to other people. Don't hire VAs to do that or even employees to do that. You should be doing all of those key roles first. Again, my opinion is you should be the first great salesperson. So after going to Alex Hormozy's workshop and learning that I should be that person and that my number one constraint is revenue, that's when I jump back in the seat. So you must be the one who perfects the pitch, build the scripts, deconstruct objections, create a repeatable process. If you don't know how, your hires won't either, and you might then just be paying someone. Maybe you hire a great salesperson and tell them, "Hey, figure this out," but then you're bleeding money because of that. So you really should be the first one. And this is a great activity to do because if you're the first great salesperson, you're really going to understand your customers better because you're going to be talking to them on the phone, pitching them, right? Consulting with them to get them into your ecosystem. And you're going to be hearing firsthand what their objections are, right? And what things that you might need to change. And so I encourage you to make sure you're using that as a learning process. We always say yeses are great, nos are great too, because nos teach us something, but are they really teaching us something? The only way they can teach us something is if we're taking note, and I think physical note of what the objections are, going back and analyzing that sales call to figure out what was the issue that caused that to happen and what was the objection that I should have handled. And so I'm going to show you some great ways that you can do that yourself that can be very beneficial for you, that helped me a lot, that Alex Hormozy's team told me to do. The mistake most entrepreneurs make is they hire salespeople before having a winning conversion process. Then they pay someone to figure it out with them, which bleeds revenue, right? And so, me personally, what I did is I ended up hiring some people who were not great salespeople. I didn't think I needed that because I thought, again, I didn't do the scorecard. I thought my conversion was fine because I was getting so many leads. So I said, here's how you do it, and had them go out and do it. Well, my process really sucked, quite honestly. My sales process sucked. I had not really looked at it to see that it was a converting sales process. And so I had people out there selling my product and service, and they were doing it in a way that wasn't great because it was something I made and I didn't test it to make sure it was great. Does that make sense? I'm having someone repeat my errors on that. So just be very careful. Again, take that on in the beginning. I'm going to go back here on you must be the first great salesperson. So something that I did that Alex Ramosi said would be advantageous for me to do, and it really, really was. And when I say this, I mean it transformed my business overnight. He said, record your sales calls. So a lot of you have telephone communications that record it already, which is great. If you don't, literally you could have, one phone here and another phone here and record the conversation on speaker, or you can have Zoom running in the background and record it. Getting that transcript and taking that transcript and putting it in ChatGPT and giving ChatGPT prompts like, hey, please perfect this sales process, critique me, what did I do wrong? Could I do better? Thank Alex Hermosi, right? I'll tell it to thank Alex Hermosi. And then I'll ask it also to look for what were any objections on this call? Were there any? How can I overcome them? Right. And so we're essentially, I have a project in ChatGPT that's called Great Salesperson. And I keep throwing in those recordings and it's learning and it's learning and it's getting better and better and better. And it's redefining how I'm doing my sales approach. So after doing that so many times, what I have now is a sales approach that is high converting that I now can give to someone, right? And so what Alex Ramosi says, once you perfect it, now you can hire someone to take it on. And what you're doing is you're hiring someone who can memorize it, right? So memorize it, put in their own tone, put it in their own, make it authentic for themselves, but memorize it because we know it converts. So we don't have to worry about, can this salesperson, is he good enough to sell my product or service? Well, if we have a converting system and process, then we don't have to worry about the person. They just have to be able to memorize it. They have to come off as authentic, right? And convey the message. And that has been a game changer for me. So I do recommend that is, please be recording those calls. You can also do that with your customer service calls, right? So you can perfect that as well. But today I'm really honing in on the sales process because again, the number one thing that we should be working on if you're under $1 million is revenue. So this would be a revenue producing activity, right? If I'm learning how to convert my leads, I'm going to increase my revenue, right? And so I recommend that highly to do that. And then you'll have a repeatable system, right? You're going to create that repeatable system. Okay, moving on. Creating content from everything you do. This was another takeaway from Alex Hermosi that has significantly increased his income. So he talked about a story in one of his books, and I don't remember which one it was, but it was about him. He was making quite a bit of millions of dollars. I think it was 30 million at the time. And he was watching all these other people go far beyond him, like $1 billion, right? And he was like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And what he found out after he first dismissed what they were doing as, oh, they were lucky or this kind of thing. And then when he realized that that wasn't what it was, he went to get some advice and found that social media was the thing he wasn't doing. And he was really against social media at the time, which is kind of funny because if you watch Alex Hormozy and social media right now, he's all over the place, right? And so he recommends you capture everything. So he'll pause a meeting if he hears a good nugget in a meeting and he'll write that down. And that might become a tweet, for instance. So capture everything rule is every activity can become content that compounds. So you might have some little nugget that you learned in a book today. Maybe you read something. You can make that into lives, to shorts. Your Zoom calls you might get some information there that could become a course. Worksheets become lead magnets, right? Notes become PDF guides. Training becomes a product. The Q&A becomes your frequently asked question page, right? Feedback becomes your value stack. And I hope you guys are doing that. So I'll talk a little bit about value stack. But any feedback you get, like objections, would be something that you would add to your value stack. So thinking everything, thinking ahead to, I like to think, okay, if I wrote an article today on a subject, that article could eventually become a book. So maybe now with my thought process, I am outlining the different chapters in the book and I'm making articles to fit those chapters. So eventually that becomes a book, right? Or eventually it becomes a course or something like that. So if I take, for instance, this live, right? I record this live, I can take it and I can make shorts out of it, which is what I do, right? So the live becomes a bunch of shorts. The live becomes one long form and then it becomes a bunch of shorts. Those shorts can then become, or this live in general can become a course. I've done that many times where a live becomes a course. And so now I have something that I can offer out into the world that, you can buy the recorded course with the worksheets and the assets that come with it, right? And so if you're always kind of thinking ahead like that, that's going to help you with your business because you'll have more assets. So you're building assets in everything that you do. Okay. Value stacking, pricing, urgency, and scarcity. This was something that he talked a lot about. And value stacking is something that I didn't quite understand. I thought I had my mind wrapped around it. Maybe you'll feel the same way when I describe this to you as I did. But I thought, because I saw a lot of different ads where it says, buy this and you get this and this and this and this. And I thought, okay, so value stacking is buy my core offer and then I'm going to give you all this free stuff, right? But that's not exactly what value stacking is. It is in one way, it's a bunch of free stuff under their core offer, but it's not just adding a bunch of stuff. And when I learned that, I realized the value of value stacking. So this would be you have your core offer. As you learn what your clients' objections are or their fears about buying your product or service, those become what you need to solve for, and those become your value stack. So, for instance, let's say you're on a call with someone, you're selling I work with I help first time home buyers get mortgage ready in 3 months or by spring or whatever. And the person goes, yeah, I get it. And I believe that you can do that, but not me. I've tried it before and it's not worked for me. Well, then that's a fear that person has because maybe they've worked with someone in the past that didn't deliver on the promise that they said, or they just don't know that they can do it, right? And so if we understand that, then our value stack could account for that. So someone who said that would say that to me, I would say, hey, you know what? In my value stack, or I wouldn't say value stack, but with my program, I'm going to give you 5 quick, easy things that you can do to help rapid fire you to mortgage approval, right? I'm going to also give you a breakdown from the loan officer exactly what they're looking for. So not only do we know what we need to do in terms of your credit and finances, but we have a loan officer who says, yes, I agree with those things, and here's anything else that needs to be done. And that way they feel like, oh, it's like a checklist, right? It's just some checklist things that I need to do. It's not me floundering around trying to figure it out, thinking, that we're doing all this stuff in the background. And so I think that that's really important. But one of the things that he suggests is you really need to write down every single objection and fear that your clients might have. And so if you're in a Millionaire's Journey program, one of the things we do in that is we discover who our client is, our niche is, and then we'll go interview them, right? We beta test our offer, our core offer. And that way we're getting that information, what I call feedback refine, and building out the assets that are needed so that we can overcome those objections, right? So that's what value stacking is. And then pricing. Pricing is really fun. I really liked what I learned from Alex on the pricing thing. And I've actually increased the pricing on my coaching program because of this information you're going to learn right now. So I've made more money than it cost me to go see Alex Hermosi in the time that I spent since I got back because of these things that I'm teaching you today. So you're getting $5,000 worth of content right here. And I think I'm going to get this done in less than 45 minutes. And I had to spend 2 days to get this and spent $5,000 plus my airfare and everything else. So you don't have to do that. But price, this was a fun one. So what he said was if you can easily rapid fire get 5 people to pay the price of your product or service, you need to increase the price by 10%, 20%, 30%, something of that nature. Okay. And then if you increase the price and you get 5 people rapid fire, they're buying your product or service, increase the price. Because most people, quite honestly, their price is way too low. And if you price yourself low, you're thinking, oh, and I know because I was there. I remember one time I priced my coaching services $49 a month. You can work with me with your credit monitoring. Okay. And I thought it was like this big deal that I was pushing out just to get a lot of people at one time. And it didn't work that way. So when I increased my price from that 49 to 139, that's when I got more clients than I did ever before when I was at, the 49. And I thought that's really interesting. Why didn't I get more at 49? It's a lot cheaper than 139, right? And what I learned, and this is something that Alex Ramosi talked about, when your price is too low, people kind of like, I don't know, if their price is that low, maybe they don't really offer anything. They're certainly not going to help me get to their goal. But the person at $500, well, now they look more legitimate. They look more like they know what they're doing, so they can charge a higher price. They want a discount. We all know that clients want a discount, but in reality, they actually look at the price to determine whether or not it's the perceived value of what you're offering, right? So if you're too low, the perceived value of what you're offering must not be that good, right? And so, or perceived certainty that they're going to get to their goal. They feel like if they pay a little bit more money for somebody that's charging a little bit more, that must mean that they're very successful. That's why they get to charge more. Yeah, if that makes sense. So he uses the five rule, and then he says, if it's easy, make it harder. If it's hard, make it easier. So if you're pricing, let's say you're 500 bucks a month and you can't find anybody who'll take you up on that offer, then you need to reduce your prices, right? Until you get to a price where people are willing to buy. And then sometimes when you get more case study and more proof and more Google reviews and all that stuff, you can start to increase that price again and find that happy place that both the consumer and yourself are happy with. When your offer is strong and your value stack is clear, raising prices becomes really easy. So even has a book out there. It says something as the nature of make your offer so good people feel stupid not to take it. And if you're really interviewing those prospects that you're talking to, if your message is clear and it's geared to a specific audience, the more niche you are, the more money. He says the riches are in the niches. The more niche you are, the more you can really talk to your audience, the more you can learn your audience, and the more you can have a very clear offer, a very clear value stack that helps them with any objections and fears. And that becomes easier to raise your prices. So, for instance, he had a guy that was teaching people English. Okay. And he was charging some small fee. I want to say it was like, I throw a number out there. I'm probably going to be wrong, but like $99 a month for his service. You come on, he's teaching you English. And Alex Hormozy had suggested to him that he needed to charge way more than that, something like $5,000 for a 6 month program. He's like, no one's going to pay me $5,000 for a 6 month program. And so there was a person in the room who came from overseas and said, I would have given you everything that I had, more than $5,000 to learn English, the way that this guy was teaching it, kind of a rapid fire English course. And Alex said, see, told you. And so the point is that when you have a very clear offer and you have a clear message to your audience, it becomes easy to raise those prices, right? So, and sometimes it's doing that research to find out what the right audience is, right? I kind of like to come back to this as kind of a personal story about my daughter. So, maybe this will help with this whole idea of niching down. So, my daughter was charged with the job of creating her own business. And I do make all my kids create their own business. I think it's a good practice for them. And so she first decided she was going to start making jewelry and selling this. So she would make it, she had a sign, she'd go to a Welland Park in our neighborhood and sell it. And she was successful. People would come and buy. But the bracelets were probably $1, $2, $3, so nothing huge, but she was selling them. And so, I let her try that out. And then it came to her and I said, okay, so let's think about that. How much you're actually making versus the time that it takes you to make the product, the money it costs to produce the product, and then your time to go sell that product, right? And so we found that it was minimal. There's pretty much it was kind of going under realistically. And so we started discovering what is something else that you could do that actually will generate more money, right? And so I won't tell you what she's doing because she's going to be talking about that, but it's important that we're looking at that too in our own business, right? So what are we working so hard to bring to the market? Is there something that we can niche it down and it goes to a different audience and it's more valuable than it was to a general audience? So thinking of that when you're thinking about niching down. Urgency and scarcity were something else that he hit on. So if we have an offer out in the world and we say, this offer is good for everybody forever, there's no urgency in that. And people tend to work off their urgency. So if we were to say, hey, I'm going to open this up to 100 people, right? Or this offer is for this people who are buying in the spring, right? It doesn't mean that you can't change the offer and it's really the same thing and you're naming it something different, which is what he suggests. So if I say, I help first-time home buyers get mortgage ready by spring, right? So they come into my program, spring rolls out. Now I'm in summer. Now I help first-time home buyers buy a home before school starts. right? Something like that, right? Or before, yeah, before school starts. So something like that, right? You can change it up. It's the same program, it's the same everything. You're just changing the message a little bit to pull in that niche audience. That may be another way that you can do that. And then scarcity. So this works well with like products that you might offer. You only have a limited amount of those products, right? And you might do that with your coaching services too. If you want to say, hey, I can only take on 100 people a month, right? Some of us, we actually do have that scarcity. And so we can advertise that as well. But whatever you do in urgency and scarcity, it should be authentic. It should be honest. You don't want to say, I only have, 11 spots available or 10 spots available, and then 10 people sign up, and then you go, oh, I got 10 more. If that makes sense, you don't want to be dishonest because people will read through that as well. Okay. So, talking about building your value stack, I'm going to come back to this because I think it's so important. Some things you should ask is what would stop someone from buying your service? What fears or doubts would they have? What obstacles would hold them back? Then turn each answer into a bonus. And Alex Hormozy recommends that you do this in a way that you're looking at every fear and every objection, and your value stack should have a solution, a resolution for those, all of them, not just one of them, not just two of them, but all of them that you discover. You should have a value add. He does call it a bonus. And the reason he calls it a bonus is because he wants the core offer to be what you bought, and you get these bonus offers for buying it, right? And I like that. It's not like these are free with your service because they're valuable. And that's why we would call them a bonus. So don't say, hey, if you buy this, you get this for free and this for free and this for free. No, you get this as a bonus. You get this as a bonus. You get this as a bonus because they all are valuable, right? So that being said, one of the other things he suggests is when you create something in your value stack and you have a bonus, make sure it's really good, really, really good. Because even when you're giving something away for free, it's an indication of how good your paid offer is, right? And that goes for social media content. So if I'm coming on here and I'm giving you social media content and it's not good, I'm not giving you good information, then I actually will jeopardize my core offer because people will automatically think, what she gives out for free is not good. So that offer is probably not good, right? So make sure that you're giving good value in your content as well. The Hormozy style of value stacking is you have your core offer, then you have tools, you might have templates, training, scripts, checklists, bonuses, guarantees, scarcity, and urgency. Guarantees, I'll hit on this for a second. He recommends you do have a guarantee if you can. I just went and hired a social media expert and he had a guarantee. He said, hey, if in 6 months, if you're not making $20,000 a month in your coaching business that I'm rolling out on YouTube, then we'll give you all your money back. But here's what you need to do to get this guarantee. It's like a checklist of things that I would have to do and time frames on those things, to be honest with you. So it's very detailed. So it's something I can print out from the agreement and I can say, okay, I follow this, which I should. Because the other benefit of that is then it clearly told me I have a job and I have responsibilities in this process with this coach. And if I'm not going to go through those, I'm not going to be guaranteed that I'm going to get any success. And I think for most of us who are credit professionals or financial coaches, we know that, right? We can't do everything. So we can say, here's a plan. So, like a lot of you are using level up scores action plans. We can give someone a plan all day long, right? Take the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. We can give the plan all day long, but if they're not following the plan, they're not going to get the results, right? And so guarantees are great because we can say, hey, we can guarantee your success in this if you do this. Make sure though that that's true. They do those things, they'll get to the reward at the end of the tunnel. But you know, it was great for me because I'm like, okay, I'm printing out this guarantee and what I need to do because I know that they're not going to give me my money back if I don't follow this list. And the reason I have to follow this list is because they know if I follow this list, I'll make 20 grand a month. Right? Does that make sense? So I think it's really important that, that's something you can add into it and it actually will take that heavy lift off your shoulders because now you're putting more of that onus onto the consumer because they want to follow and get that guarantee, right? So little tips there. Now, next one is fixing your time, the 15-minute audit. This one is really important. Okay. If your revenue is your constraint, your time must be spent only in capital letters on revenue driving activities. And this is from Alex Hormozy himself. If revenue is the constraint, your time must be spent only on revenue driving activities. So all those other things that you might be doing that are not revenue driving activities should not be done. So, and I think about it throughout the day. Even today, I was doing something and I was like, okay, someone asked me a question, asked me to do something, and I stopped and I thought, before I answered the question, I stopped and I thought, is this a revenue driving activity? And because the business that I'm working on, that's my constraint. I read that and I'm like, nope, that is not. So I can't entertain this thing this person wanted me to do. Okay. Not today. Doesn't mean I won't another day, but right now my only thing that I need to be working on is revenue driving activities. And so some of the things that you can do is do what he called a time audit. So what he had recommended is you set your timer on your desk for 15 minutes and you do this for 7 days. So 15 minutes, go to work, you write down everything that you're doing. Or if you're lazy like me, you set Zoom up in the background and you talk to Zoom while you're doing everything. When the 15-minute timer goes off, obviously you're supposed to write down what you did, and then you reset that 15-minute timer and start over again. And you keep doing that throughout the day. And I will tell you, it sucks. It really sucks when you found out that you set the timer for 15 minutes, forgot the timer was set for 15 minutes, and found yourself on Facebook. That's me. And you're like, oh, I got to write that down. I've just been sitting here scrolling on Facebook, right? And so I knew that that's not a revenue producing activity for me. And so by doing that, it really revealed tasks that I shouldn't be doing, right? Scrolling Facebook, tasks I can delegate to somebody else to do, tasks that I must eliminate. So some of us, we have like this offer that has 12 different offers on top of it. And we need to eliminate that. We need to take that away. We don't need all of those things. So how do we simplify our processes and things like that? Tasks that directly affect revenue are the only ones that you should be working on, right? And so you can reveal that in that audit and then do more of the one that what produces revenue, right? Do a lot more of that thing. Fill your time up with that thing, and that's going to really help you. So I highly recommend this. I think you will be caught off guard about what you'll learn in that. I know for me, I did this in college. I took a personal financing class and we had to write down, we had a spending tracking form, write down everything we spent in 30 days. And everyone was joking, oh, it's going to be filled up with pizza. And I remember because I was so I serious about this and I knew myself, I was like, oh, ha ha ha. That's the one thing that won't be on mine. I don't like pizza, right? And so we do this spending tracking, and I came in at the end with a revel. I realized that I was actually spending a lot of money on pizza, and I had to talk to my group about that in class because I was the top one that spent money on pizza. So they had all this, oh, it's going to be pizza. I was the top spender of pizza, and I was the one that said I don't eat pizza. That was true. I don't eat pizza, but I didn't realize I was buying it for my children. And so, just to give you an example of that, sometimes we don't realize what we're actually doing until we look at it. And that was the same thing with that, the the scoring card that I showed you earlier, right? If you're not scoring yourselves in those areas, you may think you're good in all the areas because one or two are really good, right? Or three are really good and two suck. Like for me, I had three that were doing really good. I had two that really sucked, and I didn't see that until I scored myself on it. So sometimes just kind of sitting back and looking at those things are important. Now, what I do because I'm lazy is I take that information, I take Zoom, I have Zoom on, and then I'm doing my full day in Zoom. And then I ask Zoom, hey, what things should I not be doing? What things should I delegate? What things should I eliminate? What things are revenue producing activities I need to spend more time on? It's amazing what ChatGPT can do. Or you're writing that down, type it in a Word document, throw it in ChatGPT. So you have a lot of ways to do it. But if you're lazy like me, Zoom is a great way to do it. If you can't do Zoom on your account because you're going to be using Zoom, maybe you have it on a different account. Whatever you need to do to make sure that you are recording your day for me, it's very helpful. I share my screen, on Zoom and then talk about what I'm doing the entire time. It's really very helpful. And I've gone back on my Zooms too to look at what I was doing. So that's another way I do it. But I do talk out loud of exactly what I'm doing so that Zoom knows it. Okay. All right. Wrap up and action steps for you guys. So this is the one thing homework. Okay. You're going to identify your number one constraint, probably revenue if you're still listening. So you're going to build that scorecard, rate yourself. Whatever you did not rate yourself a 10 on, that's what you're going to be working on as homework is how do I make those a 10? So learning those. And you don't have to do all of them at one time. Pick one that's going to be the most important one on that scorecard that you believe in. And usually that's going to be your conversion. Okay. Audit your time for the next 7 days. Record all your sales calls, put those into ChatGPT for analysis. Build or improve your value stack if you have not done that already. And turn one piece of content this week into 3 different assets that you can use, right? So thinking about turning everything that you do into an asset for your business. Those would be the 7 things that I would highly recommend you look at doing this week. And I can guarantee you, because it happened for me, if you have that constraint of revenue, and you do these things that I just outlined here, you will make more money than it costs you to watch this video. Or in other words, I went to Alex Rosie's office and paid 5 grand for this information, and I've already made back that 5 grand plus. So please, please heed this and take it for what it's worth. But this is your number one constraint is revenue if your business is making under $1 million a year. Okay. Thank you. I am so glad to be here today. I did speak about a millionaire's journey. I am the founder of Align Institute, which is a millionaire's journey. So if you are interested in more in-depth coaching on levels, that is where you go. And of course, as you guys know here that are listening, I am the founder of Level Up Score. We create those action plans. When you fix the right constraint, everything else falls in line. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for being here with me. I'll talk to you soon.